Good morning. I'm Catherine Rowe, president of William & Mary. I'm so thrilled to be saying those words. I'm thrilled to be welcoming you here, all of you this morning, to today's discussion, Building a Resilient Virginia. This room knows the urgency of the conversation that we're engaging today. I'm just going to say a few key points that we all know and share and that bear repeating before I hand things off to get us really underway. First, rising sea levels and storms pose severe threats to Virginia's coastal communities, and that means to everything that we do, to our economy, to every aspect of our community. These problems are not going to be solved by one group alone, and we all have an incredibly important part to play, so that's one of the reasons it's so great to see this room so full of so many diverse kinds of expertise. The challenges that we face are of such complexity that they are going to require sustained collaboration of the kind that the Virginia Coastal Policy Center has cultivated now for a number of years. And today's conference, to me, illustrates the incredible power of collaboration across sectors and disciplines, partnerships between government, higher education, the military, and the private sector strengthen our shared interests. They are critical to solving the problem of coastal stability. So we're so honored to be welcoming Governor Northam and members of his administration later today as well. With that, I'm going to let you dig in actively on the problems and come back, I hope, by the time you're done with some solutions that we can pursue together. And let me invite Dean Dave Douglas up to kick things off. Thank you.
Well, good morning, and thank you, President Rowe, for those good words. We love this gathering. This is an annual event. This is our 6th year of convening a session this year, of course, on building a resilient Virginia, but bringing in all the folks from our state and other areas to talk about these very, very important issues. And so we are very pleased to once again host this gathering, and thank you for being here. I will say, for those who came a little bit early, it was nice and interesting to hear a little jazz in the room. And is it jazz with resilience? I'm not so sure, but thank you, Elizabeth, for teeing us up a little bit that way. I also want to say a word about the role of our students. Many of our law students are involved in these issues. We have our Coastal Policy Center. So many of our students are involved who are studying these issues, who want to be engaged because these are so central to our future and their future, and I'm proud of the work that they do. So thank you for being here. It is our honor to host this again. You are doing incredibly important work, and I wish you a very successful day. Thank you very much. And it is now my privilege to introduce the one who makes all this happen, Elizabeth Andrews. Elizabeth, if you'll come forward to greet us.
Well, good morning, everyone. Well done. This is a tough crowd. Thank you very much to President Rowe and to Dean Douglas for that wonderful welcome. They are both strong supporters of the center, and we really appreciate it. And we're so excited to host this today. As President Rowe mentioned, we have the governor coming this afternoon. You may have noticed that on the agenda. So we hope you stay with us all day long and then join us for the reception at the end of the day. We have a day full of wonderful speakers for you. In the morning, we're going to be focusing more on green and gray infrastructure as we're trying to build a resilient Virginia. These are important issues for us to address. And in the afternoon, we're going to take more of an economic focus. So it's an exciting, jam-packed day. I have to start by thanking our sponsors. You see them up here on the slide, but I would like to note Virginia Environmental Endowment. I think Joe Maroon and Roy Hoagland are here from the VEE, and Virginia Sea Grant. I see Dr. Hartley over there, if he wants to wave. The DEQ Coastal Zone Management Program. There are many folks here from that. And the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, which, by the way, provided the breakfast for the wine breakfast, Women in the Environment. And the Middle Peninsula Planning District Commission. I don't think I missed anyone, but we have a wonderful partner, VIMS, who works with us every year on this conference, and we really appreciate that. I think Dean Wells and Associate Dean Mark Luckenbacher here as well. So, and Carl Hirschner and Kirk Havens. So we have a contingent from VIMS, I think, this morning. I would be remiss if I didn't mention my Assistant Director, Angela King, who is probably busy running around. There she is. You would not have any breakfast, lunch, or reception without her. So everybody say thank you, Angela. Makes it happen. And also our wonderful students, if they want to wave in the back there, they are terrific, and you will be seeing them throughout the day. I encourage you to please engage in discussions with them about their projects. They are terrific. And I would ask, we will have some breaks during the day. Lunch will be available in the same room that breakfast was in. If we could try to stick to the agenda and keep to the break times, that would be marvelous, because we have so much wonderful things to fit in. So now it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce Rear Admiral Ann Phillips. Ann spent nearly 31 years on active duty, and since then she has served on multiple boards, been very active in the sea level rise resilience discussion. She chaired a work group for the Intergovernmental Pilot Project in Hampton Roads a few years back that many of you were involved with. She is a leader on this issue. We are very proud that she has come to work here in Virginia. She spoke on a panel last year, and we're thrilled she came back to join us this year. I'd like to introduce the Governor's new Special Assistant for Coastal Adaptation and Protection, Ann Phillips.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth, very much. Good morning, everyone. It's still a tough crowd, but you're getting better. I'm going to try to arrange this so I'm not stumbling over my notes here. First of all, it's an honor to be here today to speak with all of you. President Rowe, I think, has just departed. Dean Douglas, Dean Wells, Chief Gray, and Delegates Bulova and Hodges. Good morning to all of you. I'm happy to be here. I'm honored to have the opportunity to talk a little about coastal adaptation and protection, and a little tiny bit about what Governor Northam's intentions are in the context of building a resilient Virginia. And won't disclose too much there, because you're going to hear it later on this afternoon. As many of you know, I live in Hampton Roads. I live in Norfolk. As Elizabeth just said, I retired after 31 years. I work in the Navy, driving ships. I was born in Virginia, grew up in Maryland along the Chesapeake Bay, and have lived in Virginia on and off various times in my Navy career. My initial exposure to the challenges of recurrent flooding and sea level rise, and I'm going to make this computer go away because it's driving me crazy. Okay, thank you. My initial exposure to the challenges of recurrent flooding and sea level rise here in Hampton Roads began as soon as I transferred to the area about 12 years ago. After being here a while and getting a taste for the region, I began to wonder about two things. Whenever it rains, why does the whole place submerge? And why do I live in a city that's not in a county? It turns out those two things are the heart of the matter. We have this interesting and unique governance structure here in the state of Virginia with strict Dillon Rule interpretation and 38 independent cities, 10 of which are in Hampton Roads, just for reference. And we are challenged with water. Even though we have a water-based economy tied to the tremendous federal presence here, the Port of Virginia, regional tourism, and of course, waterfront property tax revenues, the waters are rising and the land is sinking. And as we've seen this summer and fall, repeated recurrent flooding caused by high tides, wind, heavy rain volume, storm surge, or any combination of those has continued to batter the state of Virginia. And in fact, tragically inflicts loss of property and life across the state this year. Throughout coastal Virginia, and particularly here in Hampton Roads, flooding now occurs with greater and greater frequency, duration, depth, and an ever-increasing variety of causes. Within the next 20 years, the nuisance flood level, 0.53 meters, or 1 foot 9 inches roughly, above mean high water could occur at every high tide cycle. So what should we as Virginians be thinking about, and how should we respond? There are 5 kind of key core principles, tenets, call them what you will, consistent across states, regions, and nations dealing with rising water. Places like South Florida, like Louisiana, San Francisco, Boston, New York, the Dutch Delta Commission, they also apply here in coastal Virginia. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what those are. First, setting common standards, particularly to support shared watershed areas along our coast. City planners are struggling to accommodate the varying perspectives of first floor elevations that differ from city to city, predictive floodplain mapping, and to be able to plan using common GIS attributes across regions. We are seeing some action here in this context, though, and I'd like to particularly call out some significant steps the Planning District Commission right here in Hampton Roads took this October 18th, signing a resolution by unanimous consent to set uniform sea level rise planning and policy guidelines that can be used by the region's 17 local governments. Let me say that again. All 17 agreed. I can't tell you how many times someone comes up to me and says, "Ann, give up. All 17 cities are never going to agree to anything." Well, taken in the context of supporting the common good and moving forward, they can and they did. And this is real progress for the region, and congratulations to the Planning District for making this work. It's a big step. Their resolution referred to science and engineering work done by universities here in Virginia, in particular the Virginia Institute of Marine Science Center for Coastal Resource Management, and by others. And this is also consistent with other regions facing these challenges. The support of a consortium of universities is absolutely critical. It gives us the best possible science and engineering, the best data collection, the best access to that data. In 2016, the General Assembly did establish the Commonwealth Center for Recurrent Flooding Resilience right here at Old Dominion University, partnered with William & Mary Law School, Virginia Coastal Policy Center, and the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. But there are other Virginia universities doing excellent work. The University of Virginia, George Mason, Virginia Tech, Hampton University. We need them all as we prepare for and take on this challenge. Speaking of data access, how much data that we need to model our future do we have, and is it digitally available and shareable? Many of the cities, and this is no slam on the cities, this is the way they've done things, and that's how they're going to continue to do it unless we help them do something different. Many of the cities have valuable critical engineering data on paper in filing cabinets. The challenge for that is, how are we going to get access to that data if we want to build models for our future? We also don't have terrific demographic data. We don't have good quantification data for the impacts to our logistics infrastructure and other infrastructure, and we're only just beginning to share even things like law enforcement data, using Hampton Roads as an example, as a region. We have to do better here, city by city across the state as we move forward. In a recent win, 5 Southampton Road cities did come together with the Planning District Commission and enter the 2018 Smart Infrastructure Challenge in the category of smart and connected development. They won. This was sponsored by an organization called Venture Smarter. And so what that means, and the 2 people who sponsored this really were council members Andrew McClellan from Norfolk and Ben Davenport from Virginia Beach, that they will have an opportunity to begin to build a regional connectivity ring, an open access ring which will connect all 5 Southside cities to transoceanic cables which are coming into our region, which will help accelerate the growth of a digitally empowered community and smart regional development. If we can expand this, we can share data statewide, certainly along our coast, that will help coastal communities across the state understand the impact of rising waters and potential solutions. Again, this tremendous success is fueled by collaboration. I'm going to keep pounding on that because that is the way to our future here. We've got to collaborate. Nothing says the cities can't work alone when they need to, but collaboratively, collectively, is how we are going to beat this challenge in the state of Virginia. To take full advantage of new technology, we also need a common understanding of what critical infrastructure in the state, as we define it as critical, is vulnerable to sea level rise and recurrent flooding. Going beyond the Department of Homeland Security definition, what is the foundation of Norfolk, of Gloucester, of Alexandria, of the Eastern Shore? How do we preserve that foundation, our coastal heritage, and how do we adapt that to rising waters? To make the case for collaboration and funding across federal, state, and regional partners, the first crucial step is to understand how we are vulnerable, how we're dependent and interdependent, and how we're going to take that challenge forward across our coastal zone. Once we understand that, then we can start prioritizing and coming up with strategies for how to get appropriations in here, how to work through grants and other opportunities to look at innovative funding strategies like resilience bonds, catastrophe bonds, environmental impact bonds, which some of the cities and municipalities are starting to investigate, and sort out how we're going to move forward with a collaborative funding source for the state. We're not alone, And I'm honored and heartened to hear and to know, you should know, that proposed legislation in the state is beginning to start to change some of this. One example is the creation of this position, which I'm honored to be the first person to occupy, done collaboratively, co-sponsored by Delegate Chris Stolley, Virginia District 83, and Senator Linwood Lewis of District 6. My job is to be the primary point of contact for the resources to address coastal adaptation and flooding mitigation. It will be a tremendous challenge. You will hear more from the governor today, and you will get just an idea of how much more of a tremendous challenge it is than you might be thinking. I'd also like to point out other actions that coastal planning district commissions are taking that are innovative, some of which have been ongoing for a long time but are not widely or broadly known or understood. The Northern Neck, Middle Peninsula, and Eastern Shore Planning District Commissions all have active public access authorities, preserving green infrastructure, providing public access to our wonderful shorelines, creating test beds now in public lands so that we can consider new strategies for ecotourism, aquaculture, and research on infrastructure challenges, particularly infrastructure whose integrity is challenged by rising waters. The key to the 5 principles, though, that I've just been talking about, they were also addressed and identified in the Hampton Roads pilot project that Elizabeth mentioned earlier. So the point there is, we have in our city governments, our elected officials, our universities, our public and private, our business community, our nonprofits, skilled professionals who know what needs to be done and have been doing it. And since we all live here and live with water every day, we certainly have the motivation. But we can and must do more, and we have to do it together. Governor Northam and his cabinet are committed to taking action in Virginia to not only adapt our coasts, but also to reduce carbon pollution, integral to meeting this challenge. The administration is working to limit carbon emissions from fossil-fueled power plants. In fact, changes to that effect were approved by the Air Board on 29 October. Soon they will be open for public comment. And the administration is committed to Virginia joining the Regional Greenhouse Gas Emissions Initiative, or RGGI. And to make good use of RGGI returns, which you'll hear more about later today. I'll make a comment here, and this is a personal comment. If we want to use returns from the RGGI program to start working coastal adaptation, first we have to approve RGGI in the General Assembly. That is key. Later today, the governor will speak about the specific actions he directly intends to make Virginia a leader in coastal adaptation and protection. He'll outline his plans for coastal resilience for Virginia and highlight his vision to prepare the state, our state, for our future, for our climate change future. So please stay with us to hear what he has to say. But first, as we are about to start off our first panel, I'd like to take a moment to thank again the panelists who have traveled long distances to be with us today. We have people from across the country who are going to talk to you about their considerations in building resilience in their regions and how they see that impacting Virginia. Our first panel will take a look at the challenges of building resilience across our state, particularly focusing on nature and nature-based features and green and gray infrastructure. Moderated by Dr. Carl Hirschner, director of the VIM Center for Coastal Resources Management. You will also hear policy analysis considerations presented by Professor and Virginia Coastal Policy Center Director Elizabeth Andrews and Assistant Director Angela King. They want to explore a variety of opportunities, choices, and solutions to build resilience for green and gray infrastructure, adapting hardscape, building resilience for this same infrastructure, and considering the unique resilience characteristics, water quality improvement, and environmental value of natural and nature-based features, along with a look at policy implications for each step of the conversation. So prepare yourselves for an engaging, enlightening, and compelling day, defining our responsibilities to determine action for the future of our coastlines here in Virginia. I look forward to working with each of you, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to work with each of you as we take on this challenge. We live in a time of unprecedented risk and undeniable urgency, and yet we have the foresight. We know what's coming. We have no time to lose. Let's get started. Thank you.